Hey guys, tonight we are leaving the paved roads and marble cities of civilization behind. We're going to march with the legions of Rome into the dark, brooding, and seemingly endless forests of ancient Germania. You can almost feel the cold, thick mud sucking at your leather sandals with every step, the constant, monotonous drip of water from unseen leaves high above, and the unsettling, prickling sensation on the back of your neck that tells you the trees themselves are watching. The local welcome wagon here consists mostly of surprise ambushes and a deep, existential dread. So, statistically speaking, your chances of making it back to your tent for breakfast are poor. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I always love to see where in the world you're all tuning in from, so feel free to post your city, country, and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The world you belong to is one of order, of straight lines and undeniable power. It is the dawn of the 1st century CE, and you are a soldier in the army of Emperor Augustus. Rome is at the apex of its glory. The Mediterranean Sea is, for all intents and purposes, a Roman lake. The once wild tribes of Gaul to the west have been crushed, pacified, and are now being diligently Romanized with cities, roads, and aqueducts. The fierce warriors of Spain have been broken. Even the mysterious, misty island of Britannia is on the imperial to-do list. You are a cog in the most powerful, most disciplined, and most terrifyingly effective military machine the world has ever known. The very idea of an unconquerable land seems absurd, a childish fantasy. You can feel the familiar, comforting weight of your equipment, the 80 pounds of gear that is both your burden and your shield. The articulated plates of your Lorica segmentata armor shift and creak with your movements. The heavy, curved shield, your scutum, hangs on your arm, its painted face a symbol of your legion's pride. At your hip rests the short, brutally efficient stabbing sword, the gladius, and in your hand you carry the pilum, a heavy javelin designed to bend on impact so it can't be thrown back. You are a walking fortress, a mobile brick in a wall of steel and discipline that has ground down every enemy it has ever faced. Your mindset is one of supreme confidence, a deep and unshakable belief in Rome's destiny to bring order, the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, to the savage, chaotic world of the barbarians. You don't question if they want your civilization. You know they need it. Today, your legion is on the move, marching towards the great river that marks the edge of the known, civilized world, the Rhine. On your side of the river lies Roman Gaul, a landscape of budding cities, sprawling villas, and neatly gridded farms. On the far side, that is Germania. It is not a place of cities and farms. It is a single, vast, unbroken forest, a dark green ocean of trees that swallows the light and smothers the sky. It is the last great question mark on the map of Europe. You march in perfect column formation across a sturdy pontoon bridge, the rhythmic tramp of 10,000 hobnailed sandals echoing on the wooden planks. The moment you step onto the eastern bank, the world changes. The air grows cooler, damper. The wide, sunny sky of Gaul is gone, replaced by a low, oppressive canopy of oak and beech trees. Their leaves so thick they create a perpetual twilight, even at midday. The smells changed, too. The familiar sense of civilization, bakeries, livestock, humanity, are replaced by the primal smells of deep woods, damp earth, rotting leaves, wet moss, and something else. A clean, wild scent of a world untouched by your kind. The straight, paved Roman roads you are used to disappear. Here, there are only winding, muddy tracks that seem to lead from nowhere to nowhere. It's like stepping off a freshly paved interstate onto a backwoods logging trail that doesn't appear on any map, just as your phone signal dies. The enemy here is unlike any you have faced before. They are not a unified kingdom like Egypt or a collection of city-states like Greece. The people of Germania are a shifting, chaotic constellation of tribes. The Cherusci, the Chatti, the Marsi, the Bructeri. You have seen them from a distance and heard the stories. They are giants, it is said, with fierce blue eyes and hair as fair as straw. They live for battle, their highest virtue a ferocious, almost suicidal loyalty to their chosen chieftain. When they fight, they form a shield wall, a bristling hedge of spears and bodies, and their leaders fight at the very front, not directing from the rear like your generals. Their war cries are a terrifying, animalistic roar that seems to shake the very leaves on the trees. More importantly, they don't live in a way that makes sense to a Roman conqueror. They have no great stone cities for you to besiege and sack. They have no central treasuries for you to loot, no senates to overthrow, no single king to defeat in a decisive battle that will make the entire nation surrender. They live in small, scattered villages of wood and thatch, hidden deep within the forest. If you conquer one village, the tribe simply melts away into the woods and reappears to strike you somewhere else. Trying to conquer Germania is like trying to punch the fog. Here is nothing solid to hit. You have read the reports by writers like Tacitus, who in his famous work Germania paints them as noble savages, fiercely independent, tough, and strangely virtuous in their simplicity, but savages nonetheless. The land itself is your primary enemy. Your legion is designed for open field warfare on the plains of Italy or Gaul, where your tight, disciplined formations can act as a human meat grinder, chewing up any army that dares to face you. Here, in the forest, all of your advantages are neutralized. You cannot march in your perfect checkerboard formation. The narrow, muddy tracks force your legion to stretch out into a long, thin, vulnerable column. A serpent of men and mules that can be miles long from head to tail, a perfect target for an ambush. The terrain is a nightmare of tangled woods, sucking bogs, and sudden, steep-sided ravines where an enemy could hide 1,000 men. The weather is a constant, miserable companion. The air is perpetually damp. A cold rain seems to fall almost every day, seeping into your wool cloak, chilling you to the bone. Your polished armor begins to rust. Your leather straps grow stiff and then rot. The mood of the legion, once so confident, begins to sour, worn down by the endless damp, the bad food, and the unnerving silence of the forest. You are constantly on edge, your hand never far from your gladius, because you know that at any moment, a volley of spears could erupt from the impenetrable wall of trees just a few feet away. The sheer wildness of the place is alien. Sometimes you hear a deep, bellowing roar in the distance that does not belong to any animal, The veterans tell you it is the aurochs, a breed of massive, wild ox, now long extinct, that roamed these dark forests. They were creatures of immense size and terrifying strength, with huge, curving horns. The Germanic warriors, it is said, would hunt these beasts and use their horns as drinking vessels, a symbol of their mastery over this savage land that you so clearly lack. Rome's strategy for a place like this is usually one of slow, methodical digestion. First, you build a network of forts and roads. Then, you encourage trade, getting the locals accustomed to Roman wine, Roman pottery, Roman money. You levy taxes, you enforce Roman law, and most importantly, you recruit their best young warriors into your auxiliary units. You take the sons of their chieftains and nobles back to Rome as honored hostages. There, you educate them, give them citizenship, teach them Latin, train them in the arts of Roman warfare, and then send them back to their people to serve as loyal client kings and commanders. It's a brilliant strategy of cultural assimilation, a very aggressive, high-stakes foreign exchange program designed to turn your enemies into your allies. On paper, it is foolproof, but there is a deep flaw in this thinking, a fundamental Roman arrogance. The strategy assumes that any right-thinking person, when exposed to the glory and order of Roman civilization, would naturally prefer it to their own way of life. It fails to comprehend that some people might actually prefer their freedom, their culture, and their dark, wet, muddy forests. This question of Rome's ultimate goal here is a source of endless discussion. Historians still argue whether Rome's ultimate goal was the full conquest and Romanization of Germania all the way to the Elbe River, or simply to create a pacified, stable buffer zone to protect Gaul. Whatever the plan was, it relied on the idea that the Germanic spirit could be tamed, educated, and bought. You march deeper into the woods. Another day of damp misery. The trees press in closer. The silence is broken only by the squelch of your sandals in the mud and the jingle of your gear. You feel 1,000 unseen eyes watching you from the shadows between the trees. Your legion's strength, which felt so absolute and reassuring in the open plains of Gaul, now feels like a heavy, clumsy burden. You are a giant, slow-moving beast in a land that belongs to the quick, the quiet, and the cunning. And you are beginning to understand that this forest, this whole land, does not want you here. It is waiting. It is watching. And the Roman policy of turning barbarian princes into loyal allies is about to backfire in the most spectacular and catastrophic way imaginable. The oppressive, watchful silence of the German forest settles deep into the bones of the legion. Morale, once sky-high, now curdles into a mixture of boredom and a low, simmering dread. You are a professional, a Roman soldier, and you obey orders. But you can't shake the feeling that this land operates by a different set of rules you don't understand. Your commanders, however, seem perfectly at ease. Their confidence comes from a single, reassuring source. It rides into the camp now, a figure that embodies Rome's entire strategy in this hostile land. You see a young commander on a fine horse, moving with an easy confidence that parts the sea of weary legionaries. He wears the polished scale armor of a Roman auxiliary officer. A fine crimson cloak, the mark of a commander, is pinned at his shoulder. He speaks flawless, unaccented Latin to the sentries who greet him warmly, and he carries himself with the casual authority of a man born to lead, a man comfortable in the intricate world of Roman military power. To your eyes, he is a reassuring sight, a symbol of order. This is Arminius, and he is Rome's greatest success story. You know his history, everyone does. He is a prince of the Cherusci, the powerful tribe that inhabits these woods. He is the son of their chieftain, Segimur. As a boy, he and his younger brother, Flavius, were taken to Rome. They were not dragged in chains as slaves. They were part of the Grand Roman project. They were honored hostages, a guarantee of their tribe's good behavior, but also an investment in the future. In Rome, Arminius was not imprisoned. He was elevated. He was given the finest education the capital could offer. He learned the nuances of rhetoric from Greek tutors, studied the campaigns of Scipio and Caesar, and was trained in the brutal, beautiful, and intricate art of Roman warfare. He was granted the high honor of Roman citizenship, a status millions across the empire yearned for. He was even raised to the equestrian rank, the noble class of knights, a position of wealth and influence. He is the valedictorian of Rome's civilizing the barbarians program, the star pupil they would point to as proof that their system worked. He has proven his worth on the battlefield, fighting for the empire that adopted him. He served with distinction in the brutal Pannonian Revolt, helping to crush rebellious tribes in the Balkans. He earned the respect of his Roman superiors and the trust of the emperor himself. He is the perfect bridge between two worlds. He understands the Roman mind, and he understands the German soul. And this is why he is here, serving as a trusted advisor and commander of the auxiliary forces under the new governor of Germania, Publius Quintilius Varus. But Arminius lives a life of profound and carefully constructed duality. In the Roman camp, you see him attending the dawn briefing in the governor's tent. You watch as he points to maps, his Latin crisp and precise as he discusses logistics, patrol routes, and tribal politics. He dines with Varus, laughing at his jokes, drinking his wine, the perfect model of a loyal, Romanized German. He is Arminius, Roman knight and commander. But when he rides out from the camp, ostensibly to parley with local chieftains or to scout the terrain, a transformation occurs. He leaves the Roman roads behind and follows secret paths deep into the forest. There, in a hidden clearing, lit only by the flickering light of torches, the other side of him emerges. Here, he is not Arminius. He is Hermann, son of Segimur of the Cherusci. He sheds his Roman demeanor like a cloak. He speaks his native tongue, a language of guttural strength that feels more at home here than the precise syllables of Latin. He meets with the chieftains of the other tribes, men who look upon him with a mixture of suspicion and hope. He uses his Roman-taught rhetoric to persuade them, to bind them together. He reminds them of the creeping injustices of Roman rule. The Roman presence here isn't just forts and soldiers. It's tax collectors, census takers, and lawyers enforcing laws they never agreed to. The Romans had been pushing this slow colonization for years, under respected generals like Drusus and the future Emperor Tiberius. But their methods were creating deep resentment. Arminius channels this resentment, giving it a voice and a plan. You have to wonder, is he a man torn between two worlds? A conflicted soul tortured by divided loyalties? The quiet, chilling truth is that there is likely no conflict at all. His loyalty was never divided. It was simply hidden. He is a master of deception on a scale the Romans cannot even comprehend. He has spent his entire adult life playing a role, learning the ways of his enemy, not to join them, but to destroy them. He knows how to think like a Roman. He understands their unshakable belief in their own superiority, their reliance on disciplined formations, their logistical needs. And he knows that every one of those strengths becomes a fatal weakness here, in the suffocating embrace of the German forest. The question that fascinates scholars is when this plan was born. Historians still argue whether Arminius's betrayal was a long premeditated plan from the moment he arrived in Rome, a seed of vengeance planted in a young boy's heart, or a decision made later in life, perhaps triggered by the specific policies and personal arrogance of Governor Varus. The complexity of his position is made even more stark by the schism within his own family. His brother, Flavius, chose the other path. Flavius is completely, unreservedly Roman. He continues to serve in the Roman army, having lost an eye fighting for the empire. He sees Arminius as a traitor, a man who has turned his back on the civilization that gave them everything. This isn't a simple story of Germans versus Romans. It is a story of German versus German. It's a civil war of ideas fought within a single family. Even his marriage is a source of conflict. His wife, the proud and beautiful Vesnelda, is the daughter of Segestes, another powerful Cheruscan chieftain. But Segestes is vehemently pro-Roman. He believes the future of his people lies in collaboration, not resistance. He sees Arminius as a dangerous radical who will lead them all to ruin. In fact, Segestes repeatedly tries to warn the Roman governor, Varus, telling him that Arminius is plotting a massive rebellion. But Varus, blinded by his trust in his pet German, dismisses the warnings as tribal squabbling. The drama is so intense that Arminius actually had to abduct the Snelda to marry her, stealing her away from her father who had promised her to another. His life is a tangled web of political conspiracy, family drama, and forbidden love. And now, all the pieces are in place. Arminius, the trusted advisor, begins to subtly manipulate Governor Varus. He plays on the governor's arrogance, feeding him exactly the intelligence he wants to hear. He confirms Varus's most cherished beliefs, that the Germanic tribes are disorganized and fearful, that they are impressed by Roman power, that any local unrest is trivial and can be easily stamped out with a show of force. Varus, a politician and bureaucrat, not a seasoned general, looks at Arminius and sees proof that his policies are working. He sees his protege, the man he likely championed, and feels a sense of paternal pride. It is a classic case of the brilliant subordinate running circles around a complacent boss, because the boss is simply too arrogant to imagine he could ever be outsmarted. The final phase of the plan begins. Arminius secretly orchestrates reports of a minor uprising in a distant, remote area. It's a fabrication, a phantom rebellion designed for one purpose: to lure Varus and his legions away from their secure summer encampment on the banks of the Weser River. The plan is to draw the Roman army deep into the unfamiliar, hostile territory of the Teutoburg Forest, far from any chance of reinforcement. And Arminius chooses his moment perfectly. He waits until the autumn, when the cold rains begin to fall, when the paths turn to mud, and when the legion will be at its most miserable and vulnerable. The Romans had a concept of fides, or good faith, which was the bedrock of their personal and political relationships. A man's word was his bond. The Germanic tribes had a similar, powerful concept of loyalty and oath-keeping, but with a crucial difference. Their oaths were almost always to a person, a chieftain, not to an abstract state. This loyalty was a two-way street. If a chieftain behaved dishonorably or failed to protect his followers, the oath could be considered void. In his mind, Arminius likely saw no betrayal. Rome, through Varus's arrogant and unjust administration, had broken faith with the Germanic people. Therefore, his own oath of service was nullified. He wasn't a traitor. He was an executioner of a just sentence. So you, the Roman legionary, see this impressive young commander, Arminius, riding back and forth, conveying messages between the governor and the local chieftains. You overhear your centurion praising his efficiency, his Romanitas. You feel reassured. He's one of the good ones, a barbarian who has seen the light. He is proof that this land can be tamed. And so, when the order comes down to break camp and march into the deep forest to quell some insignificant tribal revolt, you obey without question. You have no idea that your route has been chosen by the enemy. You have no idea that the friendly auxiliaries scouting ahead are actually leading you into a trap. You have no idea that the man you trust, the man Rome itself trusts, is the architect of your annihilation. Putting your faith in the one man who knows both your playbook and the enemy's home turf is a strategy with, let's call it, significant potential downsides. And as you take your first steps into the dark woods of Teutoburg, you are already a dead man walking. The air in the forest is thick with a humidity that promises more rain. As a soldier in the column, your world has shrunk to the man in front of you, the sucking mud beneath your sandals, and the oppressive, dripping green on either side. But to understand why you are here, in this particular stretch of hostile wilderness, you have to shift your gaze to the head of the column, to the man whose confidence is the only thing keeping this entire enterprise from sinking into the mire. You have to understand Publius Quintilius Varus. Varus is not a man forged in the crucible of war. He is not a grizzled general like Marius or a tactical genius like Scipio. He is a politician, an administrator, a man whose skills were honed not on the battlefield, but in the courthouse and the governor's palace. He comes to Germania fresh from a long and hugely profitable stint as the governor of Syria, one of Rome's wealthiest and most placid provinces. In Syria, the problems were ones he understood: trade disputes, tax law, urban planning, and the subtle political maneuvering of long-established local elites. He was good at that. He was a man who believed any problem, no matter how complex, could be solved by forming a subcommittee, issuing a strongly worded edict, and letting the lawyers sort it out. He has brought this exact mindset with him to the forests of Germania, and it is a catastrophic mismatch. He is attempting to apply the rules of a settled, urbanized, and long Romanized society to a land that has none of those things. He tries to levy taxes on people who have no currency and whose concept of wealth is in cattle and land, not coins. He tries to implement the intricate Roman legal code on tribes who settle their disputes with their own ancient customs. He is a master of a game that no one else here is playing. He is a bureaucrat who has mistaken a force of nature for an administrative headache. His greatest flaw, the one that will seal your fate, is a profound and unshakable arrogance. It is not just his own. It is the institutional arrogance of Rome itself. He cannot conceive of the Germanic people as anything other than unkempt, disorganized barbarians who should be grateful for the order he is bringing. When the pro-Roman chieftain Segestes, the father-in-law of Arminius, comes to him with frantic warnings of a conspiracy, Varus doesn't listen. He can't. The idea that Arminius, his prized protege, the educated, Romanized, perfect example of his civilizing mission, could be a traitor is simply unthinkable. It doesn't compute. It's like being told your well-behaved golden retriever is secretly plotting to burn your house down. Varus dismisses Segistus's warnings as nothing more than petty tribal infighting, a family squabble between a father and a son-in-law. And so, when Arminius brings him the carefully fabricated report of a minor rebellion a few days' march away, Varus sees an opportunity, not a threat. It's a chance to flex Rome's muscles, to remind the locals who is in charge, and to wrap up the season's campaigning with a decisive, if minor, victory before retiring to the safety of the winter forts. You can almost picture the final council meeting in Varus's command tent. The lamps flicker, casting long shadows. Segistes makes one last, desperate appeal. He knows the trap is set. He begs Varus, "Arrest Arminius now. Arrest the other chieftains with him. The plot is real and it is ready to spring." Varus likely smiles a condescending, weary smile. He turns to Arminius, who stands there looking every bit the loyal Roman officer, and Arminius calmly and logically refutes the accusation, painting his father-in-law as a paranoid troublemaker. Varus, hearing what he wants to hear, sides with Arminius. The council is dismissed. In a final, fatal act of trust, Arminius and the other secretly rebellious chieftains approach the governor. They ask for his leave to ride ahead of the main column. They promise to gather their own auxiliary warriors, their loyal tribesmen, to rendezvous with the legions and assist in putting down the rebellion. Varus, pleased with this show of loyalty, readily grants their request. He has just given the architects of his destruction official permission to leave, ride ahead, and finalize the preparations for his slaughter. And so, the march begins. Your march, the 17th, 18th, and 19th Legions, a force of nearly 20,000 fighting men, move out. But you are not just a lean military column. You are a whole society on the move. Varus has brought his entire administration with him. The column is choked with thousands of camp followers, merchants hawking their wares, smiths and craftsmen, cooks, servants, and the families of both the soldiers and the officials. This was a common enough sight in the Roman world, but taking this slow, vulnerable convoy of civilians on what was supposed to be a punitive military expedition into hostile territory was a monumentally terrible decision. The baggage train alone is a nightmare, a train of mules and wagons stretching for miles, laden with everything from the legion's heavy siege equipment, which is completely useless here, to the governor's own fine dining silverware and personal furniture. You are not a serpent, swift and deadly. You are a caterpillar, slow, fat, and soft. Then the weather, which has been threatening for days, finally breaks. A cool, persistent drizzle turns into a driving, torrential rain. The sky disappears behind a sheet of gray, and the forest canopy channels the water onto you in endless, miserable streams. The path, which was once merely muddy, dissolves into a knee-deep quagmire, a sucking bog of mud and leaf litter. Our hobnailed sandals, the caligae, designed for paved roads and dry ground, become anchors of thick, heavy mud. Every step is a struggle. Arminius's chosen route now reveals its genius. He guides you away from the more open country and into a deliberate bottleneck. The path narrows, forcing the column to stretch even thinner. To your left, the ground rises steeply into a thick wooded hill. To your right, the ground drops away into a vast, impassable swamp. There is no room to maneuver, no space to form a battle line, no possibility of retreat. To even move forward, the soldiers at the front of the column have to act as lumberjacks, felling trees to create a crude corridor road across the worst of the bogs. The work is exhausting. The legion's progress slows to a crawl. You are wet, cold, hungry, and miserable. The iron discipline that makes the legion so formidable begins to fray at the edges, worn down by the sheer, grinding misery of the march. While you are struggling, Arminius and his warriors are busy. On the high ground of the ridge overlooking your path, they are working with a speed and efficiency that would make a Roman engineer proud. They are constructing a long earthen rampart along the crest of the hill. It's a low wall, built of earth and turf, but it's enough. It will conceal their numbers and provide them with a fortified position from which to rain down death upon you. Arminius, using the knowledge he gained in the Roman army, is turning the wild Germanic warriors into a disciplined, organized force, ready to execute a complex, phased ambush. The day ends. Your cohort makes a miserable camp in a small clearing. There is no comfort here. The rain is relentless, soaking your woolen tent, turning your campfire into a sputtering, smoky mess. Your bread, the hard tack that is the staple of your diet, is damp and tasteless. A deep, unnatural quiet has fallen over the forest. The usual sounds of the wild, the call of birds, the rustling of animals, have all ceased. It is the silence of a world holding its breath. As a Roman, you are deeply superstitious. You see ill omens in everything. A horse stumbles. A raven flies over the camp from the left. An eagle, the sacred symbol of your legion, is nowhere to be seen in the gray, weeping sky. A cold dread, far worse than the physical chill of the rain, begins to seep into your heart. You wonder about your commander, Varus. Is he a fool, or is he, as some whisper, under immense political pressure from Emperor Augustus to pacify this land quickly? A pressure that is forcing him to take these reckless chances? Historians still argue whether Varus was simply a fool, or if he was a victim of the systemic arrogance of an empire that believed itself to be invincible. Morning comes, but not the dawn. The light barely changes, the gray sky just becoming a slightly less dark gray. The orders are given to break camp. You strap on your cold, wet armor, hoist your heavy shield, and fall into line. The column begins to move again, a long, miserable serpent of humanity, inching its way into the narrowest, most dangerous part of the trap. The path here is barely wide enough for the wagons. The hill looms over you on your left, a solid wall of trees and shadow. The bog steams on your right. You look up at the ridge line, at the silent, dripping trees. You can't see a thing, but you can feel it. 10,000 men are waiting for you, hidden behind the trees, behind their earthen wall. Suddenly, a sound cuts through the rain. It is a sound you have never heard before. A deeply unsettling, mournful, and terrifying blast from a carnix. A long, bronze war horn shaped like the head of a monstrous beast. The single alien note echoes through the valley. It is the signal. Before the echo has even died, the forest explodes. The mournful, alien blast of the Carnick's horn slices through the noise of the rain. And in the impossibly short moment between that sound and what comes next, you have just enough time to think, "That's not one of ours." Then the world explodes. It is not the roar of a Roman charge, but the sound of 1,000 angry hornets' nests being kicked at once. From the top of the wooded ridge, a dark cloud rises into the air, a sky-blackening volley of spears, javelins, and arrows. You hear the terrifying, percussive thump, thump, thump as thousands of projectiles slam into the shields, armor, and flesh of the men around you. The disciplined Roman column, the pride of the world, dissolves into a screaming, writhing mass of chaos in a matter of seconds. Men fall, gurgling, with spears through their throats. Mules, struck by dozens of barbs, scream and collapse, spilling their baggage into the mud and creating impassable blockades. Your training screams at you to form up, to lock shields, to create the testudo, the tortoise formation that can weather any storm of missiles. But you can't. The path is too narrow, the ground a sucking mire. There is no room. You raise your heavy scutum, the shield feeling like a flimsy piece of wood against the onslaught. You want to throw your pilum, your heavy javelin, but the enemy is uphill, hidden behind a rampart and a thick screen of trees. You are a target in a shooting gallery. Your greatest strengths, your discipline, your formations have been rendered utterly useless. The forest has turned them into weaknesses. At the head of the column, Varus is stunned into momentary paralysis. His world of neat reports and confident projections has just been torn apart by the brutal reality of a perfectly executed ambush. His officers are shouting, their voices hoarse, trying to restore a semblance of order. Centurions, the hardened backbone of the legion, draw their swords and try to rally the men, but it's like trying to shout down a hurricane. The Germans are not just throwing spears. They are rolling sharpened logs and rocks down the steep slope, a crude but terrifyingly effective artillery that crushes everything in its path. Somehow, through sheer grit and the desperate, bloody work of the veterans, you survive the initial onslaught. You push forward, climbing over the bodies of your comrades and the wreckage of the baggage train. The only way out is forward. The rest of the day is a running, brutal fight. The legionaries at the front clear a path while those in the middle and rear fight off the endless rain of missiles. By nightfall, what's left of the 3 legions stumbles into a small, defensible clearing. The attacks lessen as darkness falls. There is no rest. Under the cold, driving rain, you build a fortified camp. You dig a ditch and throw up a rampart of earth and felled trees, your hands raw, your body screaming with exhaustion. The air is thick with the smoke of burning wagons. Varus has given the order to destroy what's left of the useless baggage train, and the heartbreaking cries of the wounded, for whom there is little comfort. The second day dawns gray and grim. You are no longer an army of conquest. You are a column of survivors, and your only mission is to reach the fortress of Aliso, a bastion of Roman safety that feels a lifetime away. You march out of the makeshift camp, leaving your dead behind, and re-enter the forest gauntlet. Arminius, however, anticipated this. He funnels your desperate retreat into terrain that is even worse than the day before. The fighting changes. It is no longer a one-sided missile attack. Now, the Germanic warriors, their confidence soaring, come down from the hills. They engage you in close-quarters combat. A band of warriors, their faces painted with terrifying symbols, their long hair wild, will suddenly burst from the trees, screaming their battle cries. They crash into a section of your column, their long swords and heavy spears giving them reach and leverage in the chaotic melee. It's a terrifying, intimate kind of fighting. There are no battle lines, no grand strategy. It's just you and a handful of your comrades, surrounded, standing back to back in the mud, trying to fend off attacks from all sides. Your short, sharp gladius is deadly, but for every warrior you cut down, 2 more seem to take his place before they melt back into the woods, leaving you bleeding and terrified, waiting for the next assault. It's less of a battle and more of a 3-day-long, high-stakes, lethal game of whack-a-mole, and you are the mole. Years from now, archaeologists will unearth this path of sorrow. At a place called Calcrease, they will find the physical proof of your ordeal. They will dig up the thin, curved plates of Lorica segmentata armor, the thousands of hobnails from the soles of sandals like yours, the skeletons of men and mules tangled together in the earth, and even a beautiful, haunting silver face mask from a Roman cavalry officer's helmet, a lonely piece of high art lost in a primitive massacre. The finds will confirm exactly what the historians wrote, that this was a running battle, a desperate flight along a narrow corridor of death. The 3rd day is the end. The remnants of the 3 legions are now a shattered, disorganized mob. You are hopelessly lost, exhausted beyond measure, and your spirit is broken. The storm, as if directed by the Germanic gods themselves, intensifies into a gale, ripping branches from the trees. Arminius now springs his final trap. He forces the column into a dead end, a place where the forest closes in and the bogs are at their worst. And now, the Germans no longer make harassing attacks. They close in for the kill. They swarm from all sides, their numbers seeming endless as more local tribes, smelling a historic victory, have joined the slaughter. The fighting devolves into a desperate, last stand around the few remaining officers and the legionary standards. The Aquila, the silver eagle with its wings outstretched, is the sacred soul of your legion. To lose it is a disgrace worse than death. You see the Aquilifer, the standard bearer of the 17th, a grizzled veteran with scars on his face, holding the eagle aloft, his men forming a tiny, doomed circle around him. They fight with the fury of despair, but they are overwhelmed. The standard bearer falls, and the eagle, the sacred eagle of Rome, disappears into the howling mob of tribesmen. In the chaos, you hear that the eagles of the 18th and 19th have also been taken. The soul of your army has been ripped out. Seeing that all is lost, that there is no hope of escape or victory, Varus makes his final decision as a Roman nobleman. He and his senior officers commit suicide, falling on their own swords rather than enduring the humiliation of capture by barbarians. The news spreads like wildfire through the surviving pockets of resistance. The command structure is gone. The will to fight evaporates. What remains is no longer a battle. It is simply a hunt. The Germans show no mercy, their rage fueled by years of Roman arrogance. They hunt you and your comrades down through the bogs and woods, and the forest, which has been your enemy for 3 days, now becomes your grave. The Romans who are captured suffer a fate worse than a swift death. Roman historians like Tacitus would later write with horror about what happened. Many of the high-ranking officers were taken to sacred groves. where they were sacrificed to the Germanic war gods. Their heads were nailed to tree trunks as offerings, a grim warning to any who would follow them. Their bodies were thrown into the swamps. It was a violation of every Roman sensibility about the proper treatment of the dead, a final, barbaric insult. Slowly, the screams die down. The forest falls silent once more. The only sound, the steady drumming of the rain on the leaves and the mud. The battle is over. The area is littered with the bodies of 20,000 Roman soldiers and their followers. The victory is total, absolute. This is the crucial, chilling fact of the Teutoburg Forest. There were no significant survivors. This wasn't a defeat where a battered remnant straggled back to base to tell the tale. The 3 legions were erased from existence. Historians still argue about the exact number of casualties and whether no survivors was literal or a piece of rhetorical hyperbole to emphasize the scale of the catastrophe. But for all intents and purposes, the army that marched into this forest ceased to be. You are now one of them, a ghost in the German woods. Your ambitions, your life back in Italy, your pride in the Legion, it all ends here. Your body sinking into the cold, indifferent mud, your armor rusting around you. The good news is you no longer have to worry about the long march home. The bad news is, well, everything else. Above you, somewhere in the canopy, Arminius, the man you trusted, stands victorious. He has just inflicted the greatest defeat in the history of the Roman Empire, and the shockwave from this silent, bloody forest is about to shake the very foundations of Rome. The dripping silence of the Teutoburg Forest is absolute. The ghosts of 20,000 men and 3 entire legions now haunt the mud and the trees. But our story does not end here. We leave the dead to their grim rest, and our perspective travels like a cold wind, racing south out of the dark woods, across the rolling hills of Gaul, over the snow-capped peaks of the Alps, and down into the sun-drenched heart of the world. We are going to Rome. Here, in the city of marble and light, the news of your fate has not yet arrived. It is the year 9 CE, and the city is basking in the golden age of Emperor Augustus. The decades of bloody civil war are a fading memory. A profound sense of peace and security, the Pax Romana, pervades every corner of the empire. The citizens of Rome go about their daily business with an unshakable, almost lazy confidence. They feel safe, protected by the impenetrable shield of their invincible armies, who are busy taming barbarians on distant, half-forgotten frontiers. The legions don't lose. Not like this. The news, when it comes, does not arrive in an official dispatch carried by a swift messenger. There are no officials left to write dispatches, no messengers left to carry them. It begins as a rumor, a dark whisper that travels down the trade routes of the Rhine. It's carried by a nervous Germanic trader with a shifty look in his eyes, or maybe a terrified Batavian auxiliary who broke and fled in the initial chaos. At first, no one believes it. 3 entire legions wiped out. It's absurd. A wild barbarian exaggeration. The legions are professionals. They don't get wiped out. But the whispers persist. They grow louder, more detailed, and more terrifying. The numbers of the lost legions begin to circulate like a contagion. The 17th, the 18th, the 19th. The name of the governor, a respectable man, Publius Quintilius Varus, is spoken with a growing sense of dread. And another name begins to be spoken, a name that was once a source of pride, now uttered with a mixture of disbelief and venomous hatred. Arminius. Finally, some definitive word arrives, confirming the worst. The rumors are true. The city is plunged into a state of collective shock, which quickly curdles into panic. To understand the impact of this disaster, we must focus on one man. Not a soldier, not a senator, but the emperor himself. Augustus is an old man now, well into his 70s. He is the architect of this new age, a political genius who navigated the bloody end of the Republic and painstakingly built a stable, prosperous empire. He is a master of control, of image, of unflappable calm. But this news breaks him. The historian Suetonius gives us a devastatingly personal account of his reaction. The emperor, the most powerful man in the world, is shattered. You can almost see him, the semi-divine Augustus, wandering the magnificent halls of his palace on the Palatine Hill. But he is not the stately figure you see in the statues. He is a broken old man. He refuses to cut his hair or his beard, and for months he allows them to grow wild, a public display of his profound grief. He is said to have been so overwhelmed that he would often walk up to a doorway and repeatedly, violently, bang his head against it, crying out in a voice filled with anguish and fury, "Quintilli ver, legiones ready, Quintilius Varus, give me back my legions." This is more than just sorrow for the loss of 20,000 soldiers. It is the agony of a master builder who has just seen the foundation of his life's work crack. It is the personal, bitter grief of a man whose creation, the invincible Roman Empire, has just been proven horribly, humiliatingly vincible. This is the imperial equivalent of a CEO waking up to discover that a third of his company has been deleted overnight by an intern he personally trained and mentored. It is a very, very bad day at the office. The panic in the city is real. There is a genuine fear that Arminius, having united the Germanic tribes in victory, will now do the unthinkable, cross the Rhine and invade Roman Gaul. The northern frontier, which was thought to be on the verge of being pushed to the Elbe River, is now dangerously exposed and undermanned. Augustus has to scramble. He institutes a military draft in Italy, and when not enough men volunteer, he resorts to executing 1 out of every 10 of the eligible men to force the rest into service. He is forced to buy slaves to free up more citizens for the army and sends retired veterans back to the frontier. The city is on a war footing, terrified of the ghost they created. But the practical loss of manpower, as terrible as it is, pales in comparison to the symbolic catastrophe, the loss of the 3 legionary eagles. You have to understand what the aquila, the silver eagle, meant to a legion. It was not a flag. It was the physical embodiment of the legion's soul, its honor, its divine protection, and its unbreakable bond with the city of Rome and the god Jupiter. Each eagle was a sacred object, protected in a shrine within the camp. In battle, it was carried by the aquilifer, a veteran soldier of immense courage, and the legion would follow it anywhere. To protect the eagle was the legion's most sacred duty. To lose an eagle was the ultimate disgrace, a sign that the legion had been utterly broken and that the gods themselves had turned their faces away. To lose 3 at once was a spiritual wound of unimaginable proportions. This single event in a dark forest thousands of miles away marks a fundamental turning point for the empire. The ambitious, decades-long dream of conquering and Romanizing Germania up to the Elbe River dies with Varus. The momentum of expansion grinds to a bloody halt. Augustus, in his final political will and testament, read after his death a few years later, explicitly advises his successor, Tiberius, to be content with the empire's existing borders. The grand project is over. The Rhine River, once seen as a temporary stopping point, now becomes the permanent, heavily fortified border of the Roman world. The imperial strategy shifts from relentless expansion to defensive containment. There is, of course, a great debate that continues to this day. Historians still argue about the long-term strategic impact of Teutoburg. Some believe it was the single event that saved Germania from Romanization and thus preserved a unique Germanic culture that would go on to shape the future of Europe. Others contend that Rome could have eventually ground down the Germans and conquered the territory, but that after the Varian disaster, they simply decided the cost in blood and treasure would be too high for a land that, in their view, was little more than a worthless expanse of bogs and forests. Back in Rome, the political and strategic crisis is also a deeply personal one. Thousands of families, many of them from the Italian heartland where the legions were recruited, have lost their sons, husbands, and fathers. The name Arminius becomes a curse word, a byword for betrayal. It's not hard to imagine Roman citizens scratching his name onto depictions, thin lead tablets inscribed with curses, which were then nailed shut and buried near graves to deliver their venomous magic to the gods of the underworld. He became the target of a special, intimate hatred. The battle itself becomes a ghost story, a cautionary tale told to new recruits about the dangers of arrogance and the horrors that lurk in the dark woods at the edge of the world. Germania becomes the place Roman parents tell their children they'll be sent if they don't finish their dinner. Our focus returns to the palace, to the grieving emperor. The panic in the streets will subside. New legions will be raised. The frontier will be secured. But the psychological blow remains. Augustus is haunted. He is haunted by the ghosts of 20,000 men who died for his ambition. He is haunted by the images of 3 lost silver eagles, now trophies in some barbarian hut. Most of all, he is haunted by the ghost of the man he trusted, the brilliant, Roman-trained son who had repaid his faith with annihilation. The aura of Roman invincibility has been shattered, replaced by a new and chilling awareness that there are, in fact, limits to power. And beyond the Rhine, in the dark forest, a new legend is being born, a hero to his people, and a specter of fear to the empire that could not contain him. The sound of Emperor Augustus weeping in his marble palace fades into an echo, a distant sorrow from a world away. We travel back across the Alps, back over the Rhine, back into the dripping, dark green heart of Germania. Here, there is no weeping. There is the roar of bonfires, the smell of roasting meat, and the triumphant sound of thousands of warriors celebrating a victory they will sing about for 1,000 years. At the center of it all stands Arminius. He is no longer the polished Roman officer, his Latin precise, his cloak perfectly pinned. He is a Germanic war chief, his hair wild, his face illuminated by the flickering firelight. He is surrounded by the spoils of the world's greatest army. Piles of Roman helmets, shields, and swords lie at his feet, and held aloft by his most trusted warriors are the 3 captured eagles, their silver forms gleaming in the firelight. They are the ultimate symbols of his victory. He has not just defeated a Roman army, he has captured its soul. He has proven to his people that the gods of Rome are not invincible, that the empire that seemed as vast and inevitable as the sky itself can be made to bleed. His victory speech, delivered to the assembled chieftains in their own tongue, is not a call for more conquest. He does not rally them to storm across the Rhine and invade Gaul. His message is simpler and, for the Romans, far more terrifying. His message is one of freedom. He has not fought to build a new empire, but to prevent the old one from swallowing his world. He is a liberator, not a conqueror, and this distinction will define his legend. In the aftermath of the battle, Arminius becomes two different people, two different legends told on opposite sides of the river. To his own people, he is a figure of myth, the man who united the perpetually quarreling tribes, the man who outthought the Romans, who used their own training against them, who led them into the forest and devoured them whole. Songs are composed and sung around the fires, telling of his cunning, his courage, his unwavering devotion to his people. He is the living embodiment of the fierce Germanic love of freedom. But this new, glorious unity is as fragile as a spider's web in the morning dew. The tribes came together to fight a common enemy, but their natural state is one of fierce independence and bitter rivalry. Now that the immediate threat has been annihilated, old jealousies begin to surface. Other chieftains, proud and powerful in their own right, start to look upon Arminius's fame with suspicion. Is he a liberator, or is he a new king who would seek to rule them all? His greatest challenge shifts from fighting Rome to the far more difficult task of managing his own people. He has just gone from battling the world's only superpower to managing an alliance of the world's most stubborn, heavily armed freelancers. It is a different, and perhaps more exhausting, kind of nightmare. Meanwhile, back in Rome, the second legend of Arminius is being forged. He is not a hero, he is a specter, a boogeyman, the ghost in the forest. His name is a curse, a byword for the ultimate betrayal. He is the embodiment of Roman failure. The physical manifestation of their hubris come back to haunt them. The legions rush to the Rhine frontier brace for the inevitable invasion. They expect Arminius, at the head of a massive Germanic horde, to pour into Gaul. But the invasion never comes. After the initial celebrations, Arminius and his warriors simply vanish. They melt back into the endless forests, leaving the Romans to stare at the dark tree line in a state of perpetual, gnawing anxiety. This silence is a form of psychological warfare more effective than any invasion. Where is he? What is he planning now? Is he gathering a larger army? Every minor skirmish on the frontier, every rumor of unrest among the tribes, is now attributed to the master puppeteer hiding in the woods. His physical absence becomes a more powerful threat than his presence ever was. He doesn't need to attack Rome. He just needs to exist, and the fear of what he might do is enough to keep the empire on edge for years. The fate of the bottle's spoils becomes a part of this legend. Varus's body was burned by his own men, but Arminius managed to recover the governor's head. And here, he makes a calculated political move. He does not nail it to a tree as a warning. Instead, he has it preserved and sent as a gift to Meroboduus, the king of the powerful Marcomanni tribe, who ruled a large kingdom in the lands of modern-day Bohemia. It is an invitation, a clear message. Join me. Together, we can drive Rome out of our lands forever. But Meroboduus is a different kind of leader, cautious and pragmatic. He is a rival to Arminius, not an admirer. He refuses the alliance. In a gesture of goodwill to the empire, he sends Varus's head onto Rome so that the emperor can give it a proper burial. This act highlights the deep divisions within Germania that even Arminius, at the height of his power, could not overcome. His dream of a fully united Germanic front against Rome dies with that refusal. And so, a tense, uneasy quiet settles over the frontier, a cold war that lasts for 5 years. From 9 CE to 14 CE, Rome focuses on defense. The Rhine becomes a hard border, a massive chain of forts and watchtowers. The Limes Germanicus is constructed, a physical scar on the landscape representing Rome's new, humbled posture. The Romans, now under the command of the future Emperor Tiberius, launch small, punitive raids to keep the tribes off balance, but they dare not risk another major invasion. During this time, historians still argue about the true nature of Arminius's political ambitions. Was he content with simply being the guardian of a free Germania, or did he secretly harbor ambitions of becoming the king of a unified nation, an ambition that would eventually put him at odds not with Rome, but with his own people? He is the ultimate one that got away. He didn't just defeat the Romans, he denied them the satisfaction of a revenge match. He simply won, and then disappeared from their sight, leaving them to obsess over their failure for years. The name Arminius becomes synonymous with the dark, unknowable forest itself, a place where Roman logic does not apply and Roman legions go to die. The sword of a Roman legionary was a mass-produced, practical tool, the gladius. But a Germanic warrior's sword was often an intensely personal object of status and honor, sometimes passed down through generations and even given a name. You can imagine the legend of Arminius being tied to such a blade, a physical symbol of his will, a sword named freedom or vengeance. You can feel his presence, or rather the power of his absence, hanging over the entire northern frontier. He is a whisper on the wind, a shadow in the trees. He is a constant, low-grade fever in the body politic of Rome. His legend is a dual one, a story of a great liberator told in the smoky longhouses of Germania, and the story of a terrifying demon told in the marble villas of Rome. But this tense, quiet standoff is about to end. In Rome, the long reign of the grieving Emperor Augustus finally comes to a close. A new emperor, Tiberius, takes the throne, and with the change in leadership comes a new generation of ambitious Roman commanders, men who did not experience the trauma of Teutoburg firsthand. They are hungry for glory, for triumphs, for a chance to restore the honor of Rome and to make a name for themselves. And there is no greater glory to be won, no greater name to be made, than to be the man who finally hunts down the ghost of the forest, the man who succeeds where Varus so catastrophically failed. A new commander is given charge of the legions on the Rhine. He is young, popular, handsome, and immensely ambitious. He is the son of the famed General Drusus and a direct blood relative of Augustus himself. His name is Germanicus. The ghost of Teutoburg is about to be hunted, and the forests of Germania are about to hear the tramp of Roman sandals once more. Arminius has enjoyed several years as the undisputed champion, but as every champion knows, there is always a young, hungry contender who wants to take the title. And this particular contender is bringing 8 legions with him. The legend of Arminius, the ghost in the forest, has had 5 years to fester in the Roman imagination. The northern frontier has been a place of tense, watchful quiet, a cold war played out with forts and fear. But now, that quiet is about to be shattered. In the year 14 CE, the old Emperor Augustus dies, and a new energy surges through the empire. It is an energy of ambition, of glory, and of vengeance. And it has a name, Germanicus. He is Germanicus Julius Caesar, and in Rome, a name like that carries an almost magical weight. He is the adopted son of the new emperor, Tiberius, the great-nephew of the divine Augustus himself. He is Rome's golden boy, the charismatic and beloved hero the people adore. He is everything the gloomy, reclusive Tiberius is not. And now he has been given command of the 8 legions stationed on the Rhine. His mission is clear: restore the honor of Rome and erase the stain of Varus's defeat. He is not a bureaucrat. He is a warrior, and he has come to hunt the ghost. He is the polar opposite of Varus. He has studied the disaster, learned its lessons, and he will not repeat them. He understands the terrain. He respects the enemy's fighting ability, and most importantly, he knows not to trust a smiling barbarian prince. He is the new CEO brought in to fix the catastrophic mess left by the last guy. First on his agenda, don't trust the local consultants and maybe check the weather forecast before launching a major offensive. His command begins with a crisis. On hearing of Augustus's death, the legions on the Rhine, angry over their long years of service and poor pay, erupt in a full-blown mutiny. It is a dangerous moment that threatens to unravel the entire northern frontier. Germanicus handles it with a masterful blend of charisma and cruelty. He makes emotional appeals to their loyalty, and when that is not enough, he brutally suppresses the ringleaders. But he knows he needs to redirect the legion's restless, violent energy. The best way to stop an army from fighting you is to give them a common enemy to fight. He makes a snap decision. They will cross the Rhine. His first campaign is not one of conquest. It is a raw, brutal act of terror. He leads his legions on a surprise night raid into the lands of the Marsi tribe. He catches them in the middle of a religious festival, drunk and unsuspecting. What follows is not a battle. It is a slaughter. Germanicus unleashes his men, and they burn and kill indiscriminately, venting all their pent-up frustration and rage. The message to Germania is blunt and bloody. The days of a quiet frontier are over. Rome is back. The next year, 15 CE, Germanicus makes a move that is part military campaign, part national pilgrimage. He leads a large force deep into Germania with a specific destination in mind: the Teutoburg Forest. He is taking his army to the gravesite of the lost legions. You are a soldier in this new army, marching along the same paths where your countrymen perished 6 years earlier. The forest is still dark and oppressive, but this time, you are not lost or afraid. You are here with a purpose. As you reach the site of the final battle, a hush falls over the column. The scene, as the historian Tacitus would later describe it, is one of indescribable horror. The ground is littered with the bleaching bones of thousands of men and horses, piled up in the narrow spaces where they made their last stand. The crude earthen rampart your predecessors tried to build is still visible, now overgrown with weeds. You see skulls, white and eyeless, nailed to the trunks of trees. Your guides, local tribesmen loyal to Rome, point out the specific, dreadful locations. This is where that legate fell. Over there is where the eagles were captured. And they show you the captured altars, still stained with soot, where the Germanic tribes sacrificed the captured Roman tribunes and centurions to their dark gods. A wave of emotion rolls through the army. It is a profound mixture of sorrow for these unburied dead, pity for their terrible fate, and a burning, unifying desire for revenge. This is no longer an abstract mission of restoring Roman honor. It is a personal vendetta. Under Germanicus's orders, the soldiers become a funeral party. You and your comrades begin the grim task of gathering the remains, not distinguishing between friend and foe, and placing them all into a single, great burial mound. It is a powerful, somber ceremony, a final salute to the ghosts of the Varian disaster. Germanicus lays the first sod of turf himself, publicly linking himself to the army's grief and its fury. The campaigns continue with this renewed, vengeful purpose. Germanicus relentlessly hounds the tribes, burning their villages and destroying their crops. The war becomes a game of cat and mouse in the vast forest. Then, a breakthrough. One of Germanicus's commanders, Lucius Stertinius, is on a raid against the Bructeri tribe. In the chaos of the attack, his men storm a village and find it. A treasure beyond measure, the lost silver eagle of the 19th Legion. The news electrifies the army. An eagle has been recovered. The return of this sacred standard is a massive symbolic victory. It feels as though a curse has been lifted. The gods are with them once more. The tide, it seems, is finally turning. Now, the family drama that has been simmering for years boils over. Segestes, the pro-Roman chieftain and father-in-law of Arminius, finds himself besieged by his own people, who now see him as a Roman collaborator. He sends a desperate message to Germanicus, begging for rescue. Germanicus, seeing a golden opportunity, marches his army to relieve the siege. He saves Segestes, who formally reaffirms his loyalty to Rome. And with Segestes is his daughter, the Snelda, Arminius's wife. She is pregnant with Arminius's son. She is taken captive, a political prisoner of immense value. You see her as she is brought into the Roman camp. She is not a weeping, broken victim. Tacitus describes her as defiant, her spirit unbroken. She stands before her Roman captors not with tears, but with a silent, burning anger, her hands clasped before her womb. For Germanicus, she is the ultimate prize, a trophy that will be paraded through the streets of Rome in his triumph. For Arminius, it is the ultimate blow. The war is no longer about politics or freedom. It is now deeply, agonizingly personal. Germanicus has his wife and his unborn child. The news of his wife's capture drives Arminius into a righteous fury. He races through the lands of the Cherusci like a man possessed, his charisma now fueled by a potent cocktail of grief and rage. He uses his Roman-taught eloquence to shame the other chieftains, accusing them of cowardice for allowing the wife of their commander to be stolen away. He is no longer just a liberator. He is a husband and a father whose family has been violated by the enemy. His call for a war of vengeance is answered. The tribes, inspired by his passion, flock to his banner. The conflict has become a bitter, personal duel between the two commanders, a rivalry highlighted by a dramatic confrontation recorded by Tacitus. Arminius, with his army, stands on one side of the Weser River. On the other side is a Roman detachment, and serving with him is his brother, Flavus. The two brothers, separated by the river and by a chasm of ideology, engage in a shouting match. Flavus proudly points to his own missing eye, a wound he received fighting for Rome, and boasts of the medals and honors the empire has given him. Arminius scoffs, calling him a traitor, a man who sold his German birthright for the trinkets of a slave. The argument becomes so heated that their comrades have to restrain both men from plunging into the river to kill each other. The board is now reset. Germanicus has achieved his initial goals. He has inflicted punishment on the tribes. He has given the Varian dead a proper burial. He has recovered one of the lost eagles. And he holds Arminius's family hostage. He has proven that Rome's arm is still long and its sword is still sharp. But he has not won the war. He has not broken the German spirit. In fact, by making the conflict so personal, he has fueled Arminius's rage and united the fractured tribes against him more strongly than ever before. This was never going to be a good de-escalation strategy. Now, both sides are gathering their full strength for a final, decisive confrontation. Germanicus believes he can finally crush the rebellion in a pitched battle. Arminius, driven by a fury to rescue his family and his homeland, is ready to meet him. The war for Germania has now become a deeply personal duel. On one side, you have Germanicus, the golden boy of Rome, armed with 8 legions, the full might of an empire, and a burning need to avenge his nation's honor and his family's name. On the other, you have Arminius, the ghost in the forest, his heart a cold knot of fury over the capture of his wife and unborn son. Germanicus wants a single, glorious battle where he can crush the rebellion. Arminius knows that to meet a Roman legion on an open field is suicide. And so, he will not fight the war Germanicus wants. He will fight his own kind of war. You are a Roman soldier again, but the rules have changed. The memory of Varus's defeat is fresh, and your new commander is not an arrogant fool. The legion moves with a new caution. You are no longer trying to civilize this place. You are trying to survive it. You are beginning to understand the terrifying new principles of this war. A war of shadows and whispers. A war of asymmetric force. You are not fighting an army. You are fighting the forest itself, and Arminius is its vengeful mind. His entire strategy is built on a simple, brilliant premise. Refuse to fight Rome on its terms. The legion is a heavy, powerful beast, a rhino that is unstoppable in a straight line. Arminius has no intention of standing in its path. Instead, he will be the cloud of biting insects that swarms around it, stinging it, bleeding it, and driving it mad. His tactics are a masterclass in guerrilla warfare. First, there is deception. Arminius, who was raised inside the Roman system, knows exactly how it thinks, how it gathers intelligence. He turns this knowledge into a weapon. He will send a steady stream of supposed deserters into the Roman camp. These men, looking starved and disillusioned, will tell Germanicus's officers exactly what they want to hear. They report that Arminius's forces are small and demoralized, camped in a valley just a day's march away. It's all lies, of course, designed to lure Roman detachments into carefully prepared ambushes. Germanicus is far more skeptical than Varus ever was, but the constant flow of misinformation makes it impossible to know what to believe. Every piece of intelligence is a potential trap. Next, he attacks the legion's stomach. An army, as they say, marches on its belly, and a Roman legion is a ravenous logistical beast. It needs tons of grain and supplies every single day. Arminius knows he doesn't have to defeat the legion in battle if he can simply starve it. So his warriors avoid the main Roman columns. Instead, they haunt the supply lines. A Roman foraging party, sent out to gather grain from a local village, will suddenly find itself surrounded and cut to pieces. A convoy of supply wagons will be ambushed in a narrow pass, its contents looted or burned. Granaries are torched in the night, wells are poisoned. The goal is to make every moment the Romans spend in Germania a hungry, anxious one. The effect is a slow grinding erosion of morale. It's the military equivalent of a mosquito. A single bite can't kill you, but 1,000 bites can leave you weak, feverish, and slowly drive you insane. Then there are the classic hit-and-run attacks, a constant, nerve-shredding torment. You will be on patrol, marching in a tight, vigilant formation down a forest track. The woods are silent. Nothing moves. You begin to relax for just a second. That's when it happens. A single spear, thrown with incredible accuracy from an unseen hand, fells your centurion. Before you can even process what has happened, a small warband of 50 warriors, screaming like demons, bursts from the undergrowth. They crash into your flank, kill 2 or 3 men in a flurry of chaotic violence, and then, before you can properly form a shield wall or organize a counterattack, they have vanished back into the trees. You are left with your dead, your heart pounding, staring at a forest that looks as empty and silent as it did a moment before. These attacks are not designed to win the war in a day. They are designed to win it over 100 days, by bleeding the Roman army one small cut at a time and shattering its nerve. Arminius' true genius, however, lies in his mastery of psychological warfare. He knows the Roman mind, and he knows it is, for all its discipline, deeply superstitious. During one of Germanicus's major campaigns, a solar eclipse darkens the sky over Germania. Your legion, seeing the sun being swallowed in the middle of the day, is gripped by a primal terror. It is a terrible omen, a clear sign that the gods are angry. The Roman world, for all its engineering genius, was a place where divine portents were taken with deadly seriousness. A celestial event like an eclipse could cripple an army's morale before a single sword was drawn. Arminius, a man of both worlds, would have understood this perfectly. While your camp is in a panic, he is telling his own warriors that the sky gods of the forest are on their side, that they are blinding the Roman invaders to seal their doom. He takes a simple, natural phenomenon and masterfully weaponizes it. Historians still argue whether Arminius consciously cultivated a supernatural aura around himself, using the Romans' own superstitions against them, or if his successes were simply so remarkable that they were interpreted as evidence of divine favor by both sides. But Germanicus is no Varus. He learns, and he adapts. He sees that his huge 8-legion army is too slow and clumsy for this kind of war. So he breaks it into smaller, more mobile expeditionary forces that can move faster and better respond to the guerrilla tactics. And in a brilliant strategic stroke, he decides to bypass the worst of the terrain altogether. He orders the construction of a massive fleet, 1,000 ships, according to Tacitus, on the Rhine. These are not deep-sea warships, but specially designed, flat-bottomed river boats, built to navigate the German rivers. Some are troop transports. Others are more like ancient landing craft, with reinforced bows and ramps for disembarking cavalry. It is a purpose-built invasion fleet for a riverine war. He can now ferry his legions up the rivers Ems and Weser, deep into the heart of tribal territory, avoiding the death traps of the forests. Even so, the fundamental problem remains. Germanicus can land his troops. He can march inland. He can burn villages and win skirmishes when he manages to corner a German warband. But he cannot occupy the land. He cannot force the decisive battle he craves. The moment his legions pass, Arminius's forces re-emerge from the wilderness. For you, the Roman soldier, it is the most frustrating war imaginable. There is no glory, no triumphant marching into a conquered capital. There is just an endless cycle of patrols, ambushes, and the constant, unnerving feeling of being hunted. Fighting Arminius is like trying to nail jelly to a tree. You can hit it really hard, but you don't accomplish much, and you just end up with a sticky, frustrating mess. You see the toll this is taking on your commanders. Germanicus is growing desperate. He knows this shadow war is a strategic dead end. He can claim victories, send glorious reports back to Rome, and parade his captives, including Arminius's own wife. But he knows he isn't winning. He is merely surviving at a tremendous cost in men and resources. The only way to truly win, to crush the rebellion and kill or capture Arminius, is to force him into a final, winner-take-all battle. It is a massive gamble. To commit his entire force to one battle is to risk another Teutoburg. But it is the only card he has left to play. Arminius, too, feels the pressure. His tribal coalition is restless. They are proud warriors who are growing weary of this endless war of attrition. They crave the glory and honor of a great pitched battle, a chance to meet the Romans face to face and prove their courage. Arminius knows the risk is immense, that it plays directly into Roman strengths. But he also knows he cannot hold his alliance together with skirmishes and retreats forever. The leader of a guerrilla movement must eventually deliver a decisive victory. So, both commanders, driven by their own desperate logic, begin to move towards the one thing Arminius has so brilliantly avoided for years. The shadow war is about to end. The real war is about to begin. The two greatest armies this land has ever seen are marching towards each other, towards a confrontation on the plains near the Weser River. The two chess masters, tired of their long and subtle game, have decided to simply flip the board over and have a fist fight. And you, a soldier caught between them, can only check the straps on your armor and pray to your gods that you have chosen the winning side. The long, frustrating game of shadows is over. The endless patrols in the dripping woods, the sudden, terrifying ambushes, it has all led to this. Both Arminius and Germanicus, for their own desperate reasons, have committed to a single, decisive battle. You stand now on the plains of Teutoburg, near the banks of the Weser River. The claustrophobic forest has finally opened up, and for the first time in what feels like an eternity, you can see the sky. The air is thick with the nervous energy of two massive armies preparing to collide. This is the battle Germanicus has dreamed of and the one Arminius has always dreaded. You look at your own side, the Roman line, and feel a surge of pride and forgotten confidence. This is your element. 8 legions, nearly 80,000 men when you include the auxiliaries and cavalry, are arrayed in perfect, disciplined order. The morning sun glints off a forest of polished iron helmets and the curved, painted faces of 10,000 shields. The silver eagles of the legions, including the recently recovered standard of the 19th, are held high, a glittering promise of Roman might. This is the deadliest military machine on the planet, and today, it has been unleashed on open ground. Across the plain, on the rising slopes of the hills that border the battlefield, you see them. The Germanic host, they are a wilder, more elemental sight, a vast, roaring sea of warriors from a dozen different tribes, united for this one day by their loyalty to Arminius. Their equipment is a chaotic mix. Some wear captured Roman mail. Others are bare-chested, protected only by a simple wooden shield. Their long hair and beards give them a ferocious aspect. They are not a disciplined line. They are a wave of furious humanity, and they hold the high ground, ready to crash down upon you. Germanicus, having learned from Varus's mistakes, does not simply order a straightforward advance. He opens the battle with his strengths. The trumpets blare, and the Roman cavalry gallops out to the flanks. Their mission to harass the German wings and prevent them from encircling your main infantry line. At the same time, auxiliary archers and slingers run forward, letting loose a storm of arrows and stones, trying to disrupt and bloody the German shield wall before the main event. The Germans absorb the missile fire with their shields, and then, with a deafening, unified roar, they begin to charge. They pour down from the hills, a living avalanche of fury, straight towards the Roman line. At their head is Arminius, a whirlwind of motion, fighting on horseback, his face smeared with blood to make him both unrecognizable and utterly terrifying. On another part of the field, his brother Flavius, the one loyal to Rome, leads a charge of Roman auxiliary horsemen against his own people. The family feud has become a part of this epic clash, two brothers fighting for the very soul of their nation on the same bloody field. Now, the wave hits the rock. You brace yourself, your shield locked with the men on either side, your feet planted firmly in the sod. The impact is a physical shock, a deafening crash of wood, metal, and flesh. The disciplined, professional violence of the Roman legion meets the raw, berserker fury of the Germanic warrior. Your world shrinks to the few feet in front of you. You hold the line, your large shield a barrier against the hacking blows of their long swords. You do not swing your gladius. That would create a gap in the line. You use it as you were trained. A short, sharp, brutal thrust from behind the safety of your shield. It is a machine-like process of killing, efficient and relentless. For hours, the battle rages. The German charge is incredibly fierce, but it cannot break the Roman formation. Your line bends, but it does not break. Arminius is everywhere, a demonic presence, rallying his men, trying to find a weak point, desperately attempting to break through the Roman cavalry on the flanks. He is wounded, a spear grazing his side, but he fights on, his voice hoarse from shouting commands and battle cries. But courage alone cannot defeat the relentless, grinding efficiency of the legions. Germanicus, watching from a vantage point, sees the German charge beginning to falter. Their initial fury is spent, and they are taking horrendous casualties against the unyielding Roman wall. At the perfect moment, he gives the signal and commits his reserve cohorts. Fresh, disciplined Roman soldiers slam into the exhausted German line. It is the final, decisive blow. The German line shatters. Panic sets in, and the retreat becomes a rout. The victory is absolute. The Germans flee in terror back towards the hills and the river, and the Roman cavalry, now unleashed, hunts them down. The slaughter is immense. The plain of Diviso is turned into a charnel house. By any military measure, the Battle of the Weser River is a stunning, textbook Roman victory. Germanicus's generalship has been flawless. The professional Roman army has proven, once again, that on an open field, It is unbeatable. But as the dust settles and the cries of the dying fade, a new reality begins to set in. You have won the battle, but have you won the war? Arminius, though wounded and defeated, has escaped. He slipped away during the chaos of the rout, melting back into the forests with the battered remnants of his army. As long as he is free, as long as he breathes, the spirit of the rebellion remains alive. Furthermore, your own army, though victorious, is battered. The campaign season is ending, and the logistics of keeping such a massive force in hostile territory for the winter are impossible. You cannot stay. Oh, you must retreat back to the safety of the Rhine. Germanicus, ever ambitious, decides to send a portion of his army back via his North Sea fleet, hoping for a swift and easy return journey. It proves to be a disastrous mistake. A catastrophic storm, a force of nature more powerful than any army, sweeps down on the fleet. Ships are smashed to pieces by the waves, driven onto shoals, or simply founder in the open sea. Thousands of Roman soldiers, survivors of a great battle, are unceremoniously drowned, their bodies washing up on the shores for weeks. It is a bitter, humiliating postscript to a glorious victory. It's like winning the Super Bowl and then having your team bus drive off a cliff on the way to the victory parade. Despite this disaster, there is one last piece of good news. Another Roman column, on a separate raid, manages to track down the location of another of the lost Varian eagles. After a fierce fight, they recover the eagle of the 18th Legion. Germanicus now has 2 of the 3 lost standards. He has won a great battle, punished the tribes, and recovered a second symbol of Rome's lost honor. He returns to Rome the following year, and the city gives him a magnificent triumph. You can almost see the parade, the streets packed with cheering crowds, Germanicus riding in a golden chariot, his face painted red in the tradition of the gods. Before him are paraded the spoils of his campaign, captured chieftains, wagons of treasure, and the 2 recovered eagles held high for all to see. And in that procession, in chains, is Arminius's proud wife, the Snelda, clutching their young son, Thumelicus, a boy born in captivity who has never known his father. To the cheering crowds in Rome, it looks like a complete and total victory. It's the ultimate public relations spin. The company is bleeding money after a disastrous project, but they throw a huge, lavish party to celebrate record-breaking user engagement. But the emperor, Tiberius, is a pragmatist. He sees the truth behind the parade. Germanicus has won battles, yes, but Germania is no closer to being conquered than it was when he started. The cost in men, money, and ships has been astronomical. And Arminius is still out there. The war is a black hole, endlessly consuming Roman resources for little tangible gain. And so, Tiberius makes a decision. He recalls Germanicus. He heaps more honors upon him, congratulates him on his victory, and then reassigns him to a diplomatic mission in the east. The message is clear. The war for Germania is over. Rome is cutting its losses. Historians still debate the emperor's motives. Was Tiberius genuinely making a sound strategic decision, recognizing the futility of the war? Or was he jealous of his wildly popular adopted son, afraid of the glory and the loyalty Germanicus commanded, and so removed him from his adoring legions before he could become a political threat? Whatever the reason, the outcome is the same. The Roman legions are marching back to the Rhine, this time for good. You The soldier carried the pride of a great victory on the battlefield, but also the bitter knowledge that it meant nothing. You leave behind thousands of your dead, drowned in the sea or buried in the forest, and the land remains unconquered. Arminius, though he lost the battle, has won the war. He has achieved his ultimate goal. Germania is free. And now, the liberator must face the final. You are standing on the west bank of the Rhine, looking back. The war is over, at least for you. Your legion is setting up its winter quarters. The familiar sights and sounds of a Roman camp, a comforting balm after the horrors you have witnessed. Across the river, the great dark forest of Germania is silent. It looks the same as it always has, a vast, brooding, and indifferent wall of green. But something has fundamentally changed. You are not looking at a future province. You are looking at a border. That river is now the edge of the world, a line drawn in the mud of history by the blood of your fallen comrades. You did not conquer Germania. You survived it. And as you turn your back on the forest, the story continues for the man who defeated you. Arminius has won. He has achieved the impossible. He has faced the single greatest power in the known world and sent it reeling backward in humiliation and defeat. He is the undisputed hero of his people, the great liberator. But victory in war is often far simpler than victory in peace. The tribal coalition he so masterfully assembled to fight the Roman threat now lacks a common enemy, and the glue that held it together begins to dissolve. Old feuds and jealousies, suppressed during the war, now re-emerge. His great rival, Meroboduus, the king of the Marcomanni who refused to join his alliance, now becomes his primary foe. A great war breaks out between them, a German civil war, with Arminius once again leading his cherarchy and their allies. He is victorious on the battlefield, but the conflict is a costly one, draining his strength and further splintering the fragile unity of the tribes. After defeating the world's most powerful empire, Arminius discovers that the hardest enemy to fight is a committee of his own jealous relatives. Some battles, it seems, you just can't win. His final, tragic downfall comes not from a foreign enemy, but from within his own tribe. His fame is too great, his authority too absolute. In his bearing, his other chieftains begin to see the one thing they despise more than a Roman tax collector: a king. They are a people who value their chaotic freedom above all else. They fought alongside Arminius to be free from a single, distant ruler in Rome. They will not now bow to a single, powerful ruler from among their own number. They see his ambition, whether it was real or imagined, as a threat to the very liberty he won for them. And so, in the year 21 CE, just 12 years after his legendary victory in the Teutoburg Forest, Arminius, the liberator of Germania, is assassinated by his own kinsmen. It is a deeply tragic and ironic end. He is not struck down by a Roman legionary on a battlefield. He is killed in a quiet moment of betrayal, a victim of the same fierce, anti-authoritarian spirit that he himself had championed. He fought for a world without masters, and that world would not tolerate him as its own. For Rome, the lesson of Arminius was a bitter one, learned at a terrible cost, but it was a lesson that would shape the empire for the next 400 years. The Rhine became a permanent, hard frontier. The dream of northern expansion was abandoned, replaced by a policy of containment. The disaster was so profound that it became a permanent scar on the Roman psyche. And yet, there were still attempts to salvage their wounded pride. Many years later, in 41 CE, during the reign of the Emperor Claudius, Roman forces on another, smaller raid managed to locate and recover the third and final lost eagle, the standard of the 17th Legion. It was a huge propaganda victory in Rome, the final symbolic closing of a dark chapter. But it changed nothing on the ground. Germania remained free. The main players in this great drama all met their own distinct fates. Varus is forever remembered as a synonym for incompetence, a cautionary tale for any leader who allows arrogance to blind them. The ambitious Germanicus, recalled from his German campaigns, would die a few years later under mysterious circumstances in Syria. Many in Rome believing he was poisoned by an agent of the jealous Emperor Tiberius. He is remembered as a tragic hero, a what-if story of glory cut short. And Arminius, for the Romans, he became a figure of immense, if grudging, respect. The historian Tacitus, writing a century later, pays him the highest compliment a Roman could give an enemy. He calls him unquestionably the liberator of Germany, and notes that he dared to challenge the Roman people, not in their infancy as other kings and commanders had, but in the high noon of their empire. For the German people, his memory curiously faded over the long centuries, his story absorbed into the mists of folklore. It wasn't until the 16th century, during the Protestant Reformation, that his figure was rediscovered and resurrected as a symbol of German resistance to the authority of Catholic Rome. He became a nationalist icon, a symbol of a unified German identity. In the 19th century, this culminated in the construction of a colossal statue, the Hermannsdenkmal, set on a hill deep in the Teutoburg Forest. There he stands to this day, a giant of copper and iron, his sword raised triumphantly towards the west, towards Rome, a testament to his enduring and complicated legacy. Historians, of course, still argue about his true nature. Was he a forward-thinking nationalist hero envisioning a unified nation? Or simply a brilliant, traditional tribal chieftain fighting to preserve his own people's aristocratic way of life from foreign interference? Perhaps he was both. In the end, this long and bloody chapter of history teaches a timeless lesson about the nature of power. It teaches that the mightiest empires have their limits. It proves that superior technology, discipline, and resources can be defeated by an unshakable will to be free, a deep knowledge of one's own land, and the cunning to turn an enemy's strengths into weaknesses. The Roman road, a symbol of order and control, could not conquer the forest, a symbol of the wild and untamable. It was a hard lesson for Rome, a lesson that they would apply to their future dealings with the world, a lesson that helped them endure for centuries more. Rome had officially decided to consciously uncouple from Germania. They would remain friends, of course, as long as that friendship involved a very large, heavily fortified river between them at all times. And now, the great story comes to its close. The echoes of battle, the cries of emperors, the whispers of conspiracy, they all begin to fade. We can let the memory of the cold German rain and the glint of Roman steel soften and dissolve. The journey is over. The soldiers on both sides of this ancient conflict have long since returned to the dust, their passions and their hatreds cooled by the passage of 2,000 years. Their world of struggle can now recede, leaving behind only the quiet satisfaction of a story that has reached its end. You can imagine now a deep and profound peace settling over the land. The dark Teutoburg Forest is no longer a place of terror, but simply a forest, its ancient trees sleeping peacefully under a canopy of stars. The Rhine River flows silently and steadily towards the sea, its waters no longer a border between war and peace, but just a river, following its endless, patient path. The ghosts of the legions and the tribes are at rest, and you can allow yourself to feel that same sense of peace, letting go of the story, letting go of the day, feeling the gentle pull of a deep and restorative quiet. There is nothing more to learn, nothing more to see. There is only the soft background hum of the world at rest, and the stillness that invites you now to drift into your own sweet dreams.